Maybe. Hello. This is your girl, Cleveland Kate, here with our friend, Michelle, on the socials as the Sports Jinx, and also Sonia at Mom23RN on the socials. She is talking with us. She is not camera ready today, so we will take her voice activated only. Welcome to the Our Turf Podcast College Edition. We're going to talk about the NCAA rankings. We're going to talk about the Heisman race. See if there's somebody not named Travis Hunter that could win it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the Sun Belt Conference today. We've been trying to pick different conferences each week to give you all a little information about some of the teams in those divisions and some of the players. There's still some really good football that's being played outside of the big Power Fives. If you are watching us on Facebook or X, formerly known as the Twitter, please come on over to YouTube. We have a great group of folks that hang out in the chat with us. We can see your questions, answer them, and you can answer some of ours. So there's a little bit of participation that you get to do if you watch us on YouTube. Michelle, how are you doing tonight? I see you all bundled up. Are you chilly?
Listen, I'm always cold. You know, I live in Charlotte, but I got Florida blood, so it doesn't take much.
I was born in California. I moved to Cleveland when I was 9, and I still tell people all the time, I got California blood. It doesn't matter that I've been here almost 50 years. Right. My blood has never adjusted to the cold that we get here. Sonia, how are you doing today, girl?
Girl, I'm doing great. I am a sous chef tonight. So yeah. I'm a sous chef and a chauffeur. So in that order.
So you're on mom duty.
I'm on mom duty, but that's okay.
Basically. All right, let's talk about the college football rankings. I wasn't really surprised by any of them. Maybe surprised at Ohio State's number 2. We got 4 Big Ten teams in the top 5, which is interesting. Michelle, what was your thought when you first saw the rankings come out? Oregon's at 1. I'll just go up the top 5. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, and then Notre Dame at 6. And then there's a bunch of SEC 2-loss teams. Miami's still in there at 8, ACC. If they win the ACC championship, they get a bye. They just got to be in the top 12. What were your initial thoughts about? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Any surprises?
Not really. I mean, you know, there's been a lot of talk going on about the SEC and the 2-loss teams and how, you know, they get to be in and other teams with 1 loss or no loss or whatever, and however that goes. And it's the same argument every year that we've always talked about. You know, the SEC being the traditionally great conference is always going to get more consideration to be in the polls. I think Alabama is the team that, you know, we thought would drop down, but then they've been impressive the last couple of weeks. So, you know, hit or miss. Nothing really surprising. I think people think Miami would have dropped all the way, but I think that, you know, you got to give them an opportunity to be in there. Boise State's climbing, you know, other teams are climbing. Texas A&M, and I think they're, you know, I think that your losses when you get these 2 depends on when you get them and who you get them to. And so, you know, some teams are on the up and in, and then some of them are losing now. And so those teams are the ones that I think should fall. But, you know, I'm waiting on the 12. The 12 is what I need to see. And once that gets started, I don't think they're going to get it right to please everybody. But, you know, it'll be a lot better than having 4 for sure.
Yeah, so those teams that are, you know, Army's still 9-0. They're all the way down at number 19. Mm-hmm. Right now, if I look at just 10 to 14, right? Georgia, Tennessee, Boise State, SMU, BYU. 2-3 of those teams are not going to make the playoffs, and a couple of them are. It'll be interesting to see. They've got South Carolina in the SEC at number 18, and they've got 3 losses.
7-3. Yeah.
Now, I understand that the SEC is a very difficult conference. It has very good teams. So you're playing maybe better talent than someone in the American Conference or something like that. But 3 losses, I don't know if they can move up into the 12, but to have them above an Army team that's 9-0, a Tulane at 9-2, it just seems odd. We'll have to see what happens.
Sonya?
Agreed. I think that's a little odd too. But I think also that this shows how good the Big Ten really is. And I think with the 4 that we've seen in the 4 teams making it in, I think it's always been an SEC bias. But I feel like this group and this year, I think we're really seeing the Big Ten kind of show out a little bit and really, showing what they've got. And so I like that aspect of it. And trust me, I'm usually not, I'm all about Michigan and not really like, okay, who cares about everybody else? But I think since SEC always gets the love, and it's like, but really though, really? But when you look at it and you've got all of these Big Ten teams in the top 5, or, in the top 10, top 5, that you have to respect that. You have to tip your hat to that. So yay, Big Ten.
Yeah, Boise State's getting a lot of talk. They're at 12, 9-1. I think the only member of the Mountain West Conference in the poll. I think a lot of it's due to Austin Ginty, who is a legit Heisman Trophy candidate. They could theoretically come in at 12 and get a bye because the 4 byes go to the people who win their conference championships. So you'd have a Big Ten, an SEC, an ACC, and then Mountain West teams. Or to get a bye at 12. I love this new playoff system.
I love it. I can't wait. And what I'm interested to see is how far Colorado is going to rise. They are playing lights out at near the end. They look so much better than they did the first 2 or 3 games. They look that much better, and not just offensively, but it's their defense that's coming along, and that's scary because their offense can put up numbers. They've proven that, but they didn't have the defense to go with it. And now their defense is playing lights out. And I think that's scary. I'll be interested to see if they're able to climb, let's see if Texas A&M or some of these schools start having the losses in these last 2 weeks, which I doubt too much, but it's a possibility. It's going to be some teams left out that we're going to be like, wish they would have made it.
We knew that when they went from 4 to 12, that there were still going to be teams getting left out. Yeah. Colorado's on a 4-game winning streak. They're 8-2. Their last loss 5 weeks ago was to number 18 Kansas State. So, one of their 2 losses, the other one was like the first or second week. So they have been playing really good ball. And you're right. I think, Michelle, sometimes when you have those losses matters. And if they can win out, maybe they can build up enough steam to actually get on up to 12.
Yeah, I think they can. And they're not winning. They're winning by large margins. So they just look really good.
49-21, 42.
They're putting up 40-something points on everybody. So interesting.
Yep. They are. And we're gonna take Colorado and segue that into, the Heisman Trophy candidates. Travis Hunter is someone that, Michelle, you brought up to us before the season started when we were looking at that very first week, and we all picked players to look at. I picked Ashton Ginty from Boise State, and looks like I was right. He's having a great year. You picked Travis Hunter. Sonia, I don't remember who you picked. I mean, I think we all feel like it's Travis's Heisman to lose, but who's getting close to him? Does Michelle, does that loss hurt Cam Ward? Miami's loss, does that hurt his chances?
I think it does. I don't think it should, but I think it does because again, the Heisman is the individual award. I don't feel like, I think what's happening with Cam is, the voters are fickle. And so they're starting to bring, they're going to bring up all of these other people. They want Oregon's, they want to get somebody from Oregon because they're undefeated. They're number 1. But they're, you can't tell me that Cam Ward is not the best quarterback in football right now this year. It's hard for you to tell me that. And not because they play in the ACC. It is a Power 5 conference. We may not like it. You may not think the competition, that's a Power 5 conference. He's doing well. He is the reason Miami has made a turnaround from 7-6 to 9-1. And you can see that every week, especially with the way their defense is playing. I mean, you're talking this. He has improved from last year's numbers to this year. You know, he has over 3,000 yards. He's 32 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. You know, he had 25 touchdowns last year. That was all last year. He already has 32, and they still have games to play. You know, he's averaging over 395. He improved his efficiency from like 145 to 171. He's the best quarterback this year. And if you're going to give it to a quarterback, then he would be my choice. But, you know.
Yeah. So in that loss to Georgia Tech, he still went 25 for 39 and put up 348 yards and 3 touchdowns. His performance was not the reason for that loss.
Yeah, you know.
But I think you're right. I think the voters see that loss. Dillon Gabriel is still pretty high up there, Sonia. He's the Oregon quarterback. I know you and I both watched a lot of Oregon football this year. I'm just not impressed. He doesn't pass the eye test for me. He was abysmal in that game against Wisconsin. I know Oregon won like 16-13, but it was not a good performance from him. What are your thoughts on Dillon Gabriel?
Right, I agree. I think he's a decent quarterback, but truly to kind of pass that eye test, if you're playing a team like Wisconsin and you're the number 1 team in the country, you got to really beat them. And 16,
you need more than 1 touchdown.
Exactly. You need more than 1 touchdown. And, you know, kudos to Wisconsin, but no, Oregon, you need to really do better. So I think that that's probably the knock on him, is that he's good, but I don't think he's good enough. My sleeper would be the quarterback from Indiana, because, you know, he's been playing at a very high level. So I think that he could be a Heisman candidate. I don't think he would get it, but he's doing a very good job at Indiana. And it's hard for me to tip my cap to them, but I'm tipping my cap.
I think what hurts him is people still don't believe in Indiana.
True.
They're going to have to win it all. And by then, the Heisman voting's already done.
Exactly.
I believe. But the other thing, you know what? And just back to Gabriel, the other thing about Gabriel for me is they're not winning. They probably can win without him playing great.
Yeah.
Miami can't win without Cam Ward playing great. But Gabriel's numbers are not as good this year as they were last year. And that's, he's not, you know what I'm saying? So his numbers have slipped some. But
I think that's, I often confuse the Heisman with the MVP in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But in either case, Cam Ward is carrying that team.
Mm-hmm.
And he should get credit for that. Where I think that's a very good point is if Dillon Gabriel needed a week off for a hangnail and they put someone else in, Oregon to be just as good.
Yeah. Well, and there's one other quarterback that we haven't mentioned who I think is probably, and that's Shedeur Sanders. I mean, I know if Lisa was on here, that's one of her favorite quarterbacks, but Shedeur is having a wonderful season. I mean, he's, they won 4 games last year. They were 1-8. And now they're 8-2, 6-1 in the conference.
He wants to see him and his dad end up in Dallas next year.
I don't care where they go, but they're going together. I mean, it doesn't matter who Dallas gets. Well, we're not going to talk about that. I'll tell y'all about that on next Tuesday.
But I can see them in Carolina. I feel like Carolina needs a head coach with some personality because they haven't had one since Ron Rivera, and even then he was very chill. They need to wake something up.
I like the Panthers' new coach. I think their coach is good. Now but they can end up in New York.
Yep, I can't talk. Sonia, I'll be using my Carolina mug tomorrow. This week I have dedicated my coffee mugs to cities that have a football team better than my Cleveland Browns.
Uh-oh.
So I started with Miami and then Detroit. Today was Philadelphia. Tomorrow's Carolina because you know what? Carolina has more wins than my Browns right now. So I can't even make fun of them. But I do love Shedeur Sanders. I love what he's done for that team. Him and Travis together are very interesting. I think the 3 of us really want to see this go to Travis Hunter. It should be his to lose. His athleticism, he is clearly the best single player in college football. And if he doesn't, I'm going to want to talk to some of the voters and just ask them how they're picking a player, because
you cannot tell me that there's a person who is playing at such a high level. I mean, the offense moves with Travis Hunter out there. When they need a play, when they need a touchdown, when they need a first down, the ball goes to Travis Hunter. On defense, when they need someone to stop the other team's best player, is Travis Hunter. He makes the plays on both ends, and he is playing all the downs. He is playing the entire game. You cannot tell me that's not what the Heisman Trophy stands for. You cannot
that's what it should stand for.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's exactly what it stands for.
Yeah, between the Heisman race and the rankings, we have some interesting football games coming up this week. And I think I just closed my window. Miami has Wake Forest, which is it's an ACC matchup, right? You guys need to win the ACC.
We do, because we've never done it. And in order to get to where they want to go, they got to do that.
Yep.
Or the season is going to be, it's going to be a waste, and it'll be a waste of of having the great performance from Cam. So they need to win. They need to win out and pray for a couple of losses. So,
and they need to win convincingly. Sonia, number 5 Indiana against number 2 Ohio State. Is this the most important game of the Big Ten right now?
Yes. It is, because like you said, it's a chance for Indiana to prove who they are. And, if they can beat Ohio State, then that is a huge statement. Now, if they beat Ohio State, are you still going to drive down with your U-Haul to run?
No.
Okay.
I am struggling with my fandom to not root for Indiana, frankly, because while my Buckeyes have played very well the last 3-4 weeks, I don't know that they're good enough to be the national champion. I just don't believe in my quarterback. But I love Indiana. I love that team, and I love that story, and I almost wouldn't be upset if they beat me. I'm more emotionally invested in the game next week. So I will not be on the show this week. Thanksgiving will be a week from Thursday, and then that weekend you have a whole lot of rivalry games, and it will be the Ohio State-Michigan game. And if Ohio State loses that game on Saturday, November 30th, I will be driving a U-Haul down to Columbus to take Ryan Day, our head coach, and help him off into the sunset to go find his new home. It's why I keep telling Browns fans we don't need Kevin Stefanski to get fired, because if they fire him, they'll move Mike Vrabel into that job, and I want Mike Vrabel in Columbus running the Buckeyes when Ryan Day's done. So
here's a question for you guys. Here's a question. Who do you think the most pressure is on to win that game? Is it Indiana, who nobody feels comfortable, nobody cared, nobody believes in, or is it Ohio State? With what you just said about your head coach, who do you think
there's a lot of pressure on Ohio State to win, to stay at number 2, because they already lost to Oregon. Mm-hmm. So they want to see Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. They have to win. They have to beat Indiana to get there. But Indiana has something to prove. That win will do more for them than the hurt it will do to the Buckeyes if they lose.
I agree.
I think That's 2 losses, the Buckeyes still stay in the top 12 and still have a chance at the playoffs, because their losses would have come to Oregon and Indiana will be undefeated. But I think it'll be very interesting to see how Indiana and their coach handle this game, because is it going to be in their head? Have they just been cruising along this year, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, crap, there are expectations now. We are ranked number 5. That's air they've never been in before. So I think there's more pressure on Indiana.
Yeah,
I'll agree. Yeah. Yep. Indiana has the more pressure on them. I think that, like you said, it's like, oh crap, we've got expectations and we have to play like we mean it. But I think because right now the perception is that, Ohio State's going to roll. So Ohio State really doesn't have that many expectations on them, I don't think. So
I also believe that this is what I believe. A Indiana win is better for both teams. And I'm going to say here's why. Because if Indiana wins, then they gain respect from people who don't believe in them, and they move up in the polls. if Indiana wins also, then that makes them look better than people thought, and Ohio State doesn't drop down as far.
Yep.
But if the other thing happens, then they're gonna say, "I told you Indiana wasn't any good."
Right. Indiana's going to plummet. Ohio State can weather a loss and stay in the top 10.
Yep.
I don't know that Indiana can.
Yep.
I think you're right.
Because they're ready to drop them like they were the Canes. They were waiting for them to lose. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple other interesting games that we're going to have this weekend. BYU at 14 is fighting and clawing its way back into trying to get into the top 12. It has number 21 Arizona. Now, while a win won't move them up a whole lot, a loss would just sink their chances. You've got number 18 Army against number 6 Notre Dame. Because Notre Dame's an independent, they have no shot at a bye. But again, Army's 9-0. If they want to move up, they've got to beat Notre Dame. I think if Army at 18 beats Notre Dame at 6, is that enough, Michelle, to get them all the way up to 12?
Nope. But it's going to drop Notre Dame for sure.
No.
It's going to drop Notre Dame because, Notre Dame wins, but nobody really believes they're going to do anything. They're always going to be right where they are. But I don't think it's going to move Army all the way up. But it will move them up some because people still won't believe it. They'll just say that's a big rivalry game and,
Yeah. Big Red was asking, isn't the Ohio State game in Columbus? Yes, it is. It is. Yep. The Indiana game is, and then Michigan the week after. So, like I said, a real quick trip for me and my U-Haul if I need to go down there. Sonia, it sounds like the Army Notre Dame game is very similar to the Indiana Ohio State game in that losing will do more damage to one team than it would the other.
Agreed. I think losing would probably be lights out for Notre Dame because, like you said, I think they're kind of like the Canes. They're just waiting for them to lose because Notre Dame is going to Notre Dame, right? That's what they're waiting for. I think Army, if they lose, nothing. They'll be okay. They just, that's just like, oh, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they'll stay below 12 whether they win or lose. But I think you ladies are both right. Notre Dame will drop more than Army would go up from beating them.
Yep.
And then I think all the rest of the games really, there's no other big matchups with ranked teams. Everything else is conference stuff, right? We had 2 weeks left, and then you have the conference championships. So Miami and some of these other teams are playing conference opponents that they need to beat in order to make sure they get to their conference championship game in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
And keep an eye on this Kentucky and Texas game. Even though Kentucky only has 4 wins, these SEC teams, you never know. It's just like somehow the team that I don't know. They just they surprise you and they come in and make an upset right at the inopportune time.
Yep. And I have not been impressed with Texas this year because
they beat Ole Miss
ahead in the game standpoint, and I can see them looking past this week, and not thinking about it. And they are very precariously in third place. This loss would plummet them as well.
Yeah. Yep. Because Kentucky was able to upset Ole Miss, and I thought Ole Miss was probably one of the top teams there, but they were able to pull that off. You never know.
I'm looking at the rankings and how people moved last week, and we just had this conversation. BYU lost and dropped 8 spots. Tennessee got a loss and dropped 4 spots. Are they moving more than normal? Because there are 12 spots to play with now. I don't feel like when there were only 4, they moved this much. Or did I just not pay attention?
Yeah, again, is some of it is which teams it is, and then we got more room. We have more space now.
Yeah,
we can drop them. When you want to keep a team in, you don't drop them as far. What I said about Alabama when they lost those games, they didn't move them too far because they always want to make sure that they're back in there. So now you have more space, though. You can drop them down probably where they should be, and then let them work their way back up.
Yeah, I mean, but at this point now, you only got 2 more weeks to really work your way back up. So,
right.
I mean,
And it just depends on what those two games are. If you have some big ones at the end, then it's a possibility. But if you don't, you may be out of gas.
True.
Yeah. Can Florida beat Ole Miss? Big Red wants to know.
They can. They played pretty well. They played pretty well last week.
I
For
think
a while,
they can
anyway.
as well.
I was
They
about to
can.
say.
It's just it's will they? And then Big Red says if Army wins out, they get an automatic playoff bid as a conference championship. So top 12 teams go to the playoffs based on your ranking. The top 4 ranked teams that are also a conference champion get a bye. Army could get a bye, but you've got a Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC, American, and then Boise State with the Mountain West. You could have 7 different conference champions in that top 12. So Army may not get a bid if they're the 5th rank of the, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it's Big 10, SEC, ACC, Big 12, and then
4 right there. That's
Army,
those buys.
You don't get a bye. You'll get in, but you don't get a bye. It's like, so there are 7 possible conferences represented right now. As an independent, Notre Dame's got no shot because they don't have a conference championship game.
And they should not have a shot because
they have no shot, but everybody else is in it. Boise State better move up off of 12 because I don't think 12 is going to get them a bye. They're going to have to get up a little bit higher if they win their conference and they want to get a bye.
I would love to see Boise State make it just as long as they're not playing at home because I refuse to watch them play on that blue.
I can't stand that bluegrass.
But if they're playing, I would love to see
bluegrass. I feel like I should be in Kentucky or Tennessee or somewhere.
I want to see Genty play and run and score 3 touchdowns and run 300 yards on one of those big teams that everybody thinks he needs to play. So,
I agree.
Agreed.
Last segment today, we've been talking about different conferences. We talked about the MAC. We talked about the Coastal Athletic Association. We've done a bunch of conferences this season. Today, we're going to talk about the Sun Belt Conference and, highlight some of their players of the week. Sitting atop that conference, James Madison at 8-2 and Louisiana also at 8-2. And then you've got Marshall at 7-3. Just Southern, Arkansas State, and Texas State all at 6-4. And then you've got everybody else in the division. To watch, it's very competitive. When I look at their conference records, there's a whole lot of 4-2.
Yeah. And the Sun Belt, or the newly formed the Sun Belts only had these championships games for this will be the 6th, or it would have been the 7th, but I think COVID cost 1 year. Yeah. So, their dominant teams, Appalachian State, who dominated 1AA back before they moved up to 1AA. We know them to be a team who's made a couple of upsets of some big teams. I even picked them to beat Clemson this year, but they let me down. But you have Appalachian State, who's won 2 Sun Belt Conference titles, and then Troy, who used to be Troy State out of Troy, Alabama, but now they just go by Troy. They won 2. And in fact, they've won the last 2. They won 2023 and 2022. And then you got Louisiana at Lafayette, which they just go by Louisiana now. And as you can see, Louisiana and Marshall are the 2 teams that's looking like they'll play in the Sun Belt Championship, provided they don't lose, because like you said, each division has like 2 or 3 4-2 teams. So it could be a mess if one of them lose.
Yeah. Sorry, it looked like my internet kicked out, but y'all kept going.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
That's what we do.
Yep, we did. So, yeah, it looks like, it could be one of those teams. So,
yeah, I picked them because of Appalachian State and my history with that school. So, it is a very good conference. You get a lot of players out of these conferences as well, out of this conference. So, it works out great, I think, because you get a lot of backups. You get some actually pretty good players, too.
Well, here's the thing. The Sun Belt had 6 draft picks last year in 2024, and they had a record 9 in 2023. But, there are, I always say about the best players come from these small conferences, and these are the conferences, they're not really small, but these are the conferences where they don't get all of the pub, but they get quality NFL players. They get players in there. I mean, Jalen Tolbert, the wide receiver for the Cowboys, who wears number 1. You know, he is a Sun Belt product. We drafted him in the 3rd round out of South Alabama. So Isaiah Likely, the tight end for the Baltimore Ravens, another Sun Belt product. Elijah Mitchell, the running back for the 49ers, another Sun Belt product. So they have talent. They have the players. They just don't get all of the notoriety. But these are the players that are playing 4 years, and so they probably have more experience than half the people that come from the SEC.
Agreed.
For sure. Sorry about my internet issues, but I know
okay.
you ladies will just keep talking until I get reconnected again. Sonia, we got some Sunbelt Players of the Week. You want to talk to us about the Offensive Player of the Week?
I would love to, but I don't have my paper in front of me right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were still driving. I will talk about him.
Actually, I'm parked, but I still don't have my paper in front of me.
Matthew Caldwell Jr., quarterback out of Auburn, Alabama, is the quarterback for the Troy Trojans. He had accounted for all 4 of their touchdowns in their 28-20 victory over Georgia Southern last week. He completed 26 of 32 passes for 288 yards, had 2 passing touchdowns, and then rushed his little legs for 2 more touchdowns. He converted on 10 third downs with either his arm through passing or scrambling, which is a very nice feature in the NFL. And they were 11 of 13 on third downs down a 10 team. So he is the first Troy player to rush for multiple touchdowns in a single game this season, and the first Trojan quarterback to do so since Gunnar Watson at Appalachian State back in 2022. So shout out Troy quarterback Matthew Caldwell. Whee! Michelle, you got a defensive player for us?
Go ahead and run it down, Kate. You got it.
Sonia, is it me again?
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, is it my internet? Did we lose Michelle?
Oh, did you? Oh, no, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
You want to talk about defensive player of the week?
You go ahead and talk about our defensive play, even though everybody knows I love the defensive.
I know.
Brian Whitehead.
We're going to shout out Brian Whitehead from Arkansas State. He's a senior defensive lineman, originally from Bartlett, Tennessee. This Red Wolf senior defensive lineman was a force to be reckoned with in Arkansas State's 27-20 win over Georgia State, which clinched their bowl eligibility for the 2nd straight season. He registered a career-high 5 tackles, including a career-best 3.5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks in a single game. He also forced the first fumble of his career and a couple quarterback hurries. So shout out Brian Whitehead, senior D lineman from Arkansas State.
That sounds like somebody I would want on my team. I'm just saying.
He's a big boy, and he can move his feet, which is if you're going to get tackles for loss and sacks, there's some athletic ability there that you can move back and forth across the line.
Agreed.
And then on special teams, J.J. Roberts out of Marshall, senior DB. He had a momentum shifting play on special teams. So at a lot of these Sunbelt schools, these guys will play special teams as well as offense and defense. So he helped in their 31-19 win over Coastal Carolina. He jumped through the line and managed to block a field goal attempt, which then one of his teammates was able to return for 65 yards in the go-ahead score. We've seen a lot of kicks getting blocked in the NFL this season. Apparently, especially if you play the Green Bay Packers, they have a guy that is very good at blocking field goals. So looking forward to seeing if this young man can make a career of that and find himself a home in the NFL.
I think so.
Well, while we're talking about kickers, the Sun Belt has quite a few of them in the NFL right now. Yep. I think they got like 3. The kicker for the Lions, the kicker for the Broncos, Will Lutz, and they got I forget the other guy, but yeah, they have some kickers. Their kickers did pretty good this past week. the Bills kicker, Tyler Bass. All of those are Sun Belt players. So
Sun Belt alum.
look at that. And you see that Big Red just point out Josh Norman went to Coastal Carolina.
Yep.
Yep, he did.
Poor
So-
Josh Norman.
If you can find them, if you live in the right area and you can find those games, it's my biggest struggle with a lot of these conferences we're talking about. I look at the upcoming matchups and I'm like, oh, I want to watch this game, and we can't get them on TV here. So if
we
you
know
are
one of the-
watching and you're in that area, find you a game this weekend.
You know one of the most famous players, though, from Marshall, Randy
Mouse.
I used
And
to like
Chad Pennington.
Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Come on, man.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for checking in with us. That is our show for this week. Next week is Thanksgiving week on Thursday. Sonia, I am going to be out of town. Sonia, are you and Michelle still going to do a little chitty chat next Wednesday, or you can take the holiday off?
I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Let's
see.
talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Let's talk about it. If you follow us on the socials, we've got our handles on here. Sonia and I will be hating on each other starting Sunday morning all the way through next Saturday.
No,
it's okay.
Starting as soon as the games are over Saturday.
Yeah, probably at the
afternoon.
end of the game on Saturday. Yeah, because
Hate
she's
week
my sister
starts.
51 weeks out of the year, but that 1 week.
Yep. Hey,
We
week.
can't.
Let's go, baby.
I haven't
I
got a leg
can't
to stand on. She's a defending national champion. I don't care how bad her Michigan Wolverines are this year. So we'll just see how it goes. But
Keep hope
thank
alive,
you.
Sonia.
You know I will.
All right. Thank you so much for checking in with us. Thanks, Big Red and Kristen, for your comments. We appreciate you. Y'all have a great
Absolutely.
evening.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Peace out, y'all.
Bye, folks.